Where does work-life balance come in for Ibilola Amao? How does that happen?
Okay, so like I told you, I'm a team player. I delegate what somebody else can do, and I empower my team. I'm very clear on what I need to show up for and what I need to put my energy on. And another thing is, whatever I'm passionate about, I create time for. So it's no longer about ticking a box and being somewhere or doing something. No, it's I show up and I give my all to whatever I'm passionate about.
Right.
So it's all time management and prioritizing what matters to you based on your goals and your objectives. I have a clear purpose. I know what I want to achieve in my lifetime. So if what I'm being asked to do doesn't key into that purpose, then it's a no. And I have no apologies for a no.
You're listening to the Life and Leadership Podcast, where leaders from across the globe share openly about the trials, triumphs, and lessons learned along the leadership journey. Whether you're a seasoned, new, or aspiring leader, get ready to receive powerful insights and practical takeaways to help you grow in your leadership. And now, here is your host, Mary Eniolu.
So if you had to look back on your life's journey, not just leadership now, but just your life journey, and there was someone you wanted to say thank you to that really made that huge impact on your life, who would that person be?
I'll say my late father, because I could easily have been discriminated against at home, and then I would never have explored the STEM dimension of my life. And then I'd say there's a lady, engineer Dr. Mrs. Olatokunbo Shomolu. She was probably the first PhD in civil and structural engineering in Nigeria, who I reached out to when I got back. And she gave me the note to NMPC NETCO that opened the doors for me to implement my knowledge in the oil and gas industry. And I always say that sometimes the person who opens the door for you may not necessarily be a female, but you should have an open mind about who could possibly do the mentoring and coaching and support you require. People tend to think it must be a woman. I've been lucky, but that's the only woman who's really, really helped me. Everybody else has been a male supporter or a male sponsor.
Wonderful. And yeah, I always say very often when we live our lives, we don't realize the impact we're making on others and how we're leading them. Because your father obviously was a leader in your home. And I always say, diversity and inclusion begins from the home.
Oh,
It
absolutely.
begins from the home. So him, encouraging you in this area where he could easily have said, well, go do something easier, knowing it wasn't easy, giving you the advice, giving you the push. I think that that's really powerful and something we can all learn, that we can all lead from where we are. We don't have to have that position or title of leadership, but just influencing someone, giving them that nudge, giving them that encouragement can really make all the difference. Okay. Can you share with us, because we like to keep it real on the Life and Leadership podcast. So can you share with us some either painful or difficult experience that you've had in the past that continues to shape your leadership today? Tell us, a little bit about it, how you overcame it, the lessons learned that continues to shape who you are today as a leader.
Well, I'd say I've been exposed to very brutal discrimination in the area of gender diversity, as well as racial discrimination. And the bottom line is I've been able to confront those issues as opportunities to reflect, re-strategize, and come up with solutions, not just for myself, but for the next Black girl or woman who may find herself in my situation. And I must say that I'm very grateful to God that I've been able to turn brutal negatives into positives. And one of the outcomes of such was the establishment of the Women in Energy Network. So myself and two other ladies, Patricia Simon Hart and Fumi Ogboe, set up the Women in Energy Network in 2020, which has over 700 females and maybe about 20 corporate bodies, including international oil companies, as partners now. And I realized that it's not just about me overcoming the problems, but strategizing and looking for other stakeholders and other people who believe in the solution to come up with a system that would outlive us. So the Women in
Mm.
Energy Network now, right from the collegiates to the Amazons, is a platform whereby no girl child would ever be discriminated against in engineering, energy, or entrepreneurship, because there is a formidable system, a network that would support them from right once they decide to become an engineer or to play in the energy space till they achieve their goals as leaders in the energy sector or entrepreneurs in the energy sector. So I think the bottom line is that when we're confronted with very painful experiences or negative experiences, it's an opportunity for us to re-strategize on how can I make sure this doesn't happen to another person or many other people? And what must I do? I'm not one for complaining or having a pity party. No, it's got to be more than that. What's the strategy behind this solution, and how can we entrench it in the system to make sure it's
Mm.
sustainable over generations and make sure this never happens to somebody else? So, I mean, I always tell people, I mean, if you think you're hurting me or trying to do something negative to me, you're just going to be a stepping stone to something much better than you ever imagined. So bring it on.
Right. So for you, it's not even just about overcoming that situation. It's actually about looking ahead and looking at the legacy you're going to leave as a result of that situation. And that is so powerful because that keeps you looking forward. I always say to people, you can either say, why me? Or you can say, what now?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
There's a big difference. You say, oh, why me? That takes you to the pity party. What now? You're looking ahead, you're looking forward, right? This has happened, what now? And that is the mindset that a leader should have because as leaders, we're called to solve problems, right? And problems will always arise. It might be problems that impact you personally or problems that impact the organization, but we're problem solvers. So having that attitude of what now, where do we go from here? Do we resolve this? It's a powerful attitude for any leader to have. I talk about making positive assumptions, having positive expectations, going into a room and just expecting everyone to like you because I found out that you tend to get more of what you expect. So I'm not saying, racism is not real. We all know it's real, but I'm not going to walk around expecting people to be racist to me, right? So
Absolutely.
that makes such a huge difference. But you also talk about competence, knowing your stuff. We tend to talk a lot in the ethnic minority spaces about more being expected of us and more being demanded of us to be able to get that seat at the table. And while often that is true, I think the onus is on you, like you say, to know where you want to go and what it takes to get you there. Because sitting and complaining about unfairness and the world not being fair, I'm not sure it's going to get us where we want to go. It is what it is. Of course, we do the fights, we do the talk, we do the education. But when it comes to you as an individual, it's so important that you know where you want to go and what you need to do to get you where you want to go, rather than looking at everybody around you and thinking, that's unfair, that's unfair, that's unfair. So I really love what you talk about, you hold your own. If you're having a conversation, you can hold your own, you know your stuff. And again, I love the fact that you're highlighting being in the minority as a positive thing, not as a negative thing.
Absolutely.
As a positive thing, you being the only black person there, it's not a negative thing. You being the only female there, it's not a negative thing. It actually highlights you, it actually puts you in the forefront. And so if you develop yourself and you stay focused and you know your stuff, then when that heat comes, you're able to take it. I mean, running my own law practice before I set up my training and development company. It was the same thing. People would come into the practice and they want to speak to the senior partner. And I'm like, okay, how can I help you? I don't want to speak to you. I want to speak to the senior partner because they're assuming it can't be me. And I have to explain, well, there's nobody more senior in this place than me. And so
Oh,
we have to go through all of that. But you, like you say, yeah, maybe some call it thick skin, but I love the word focus. Just focus on where you want to go and let that be what drives you, not what others are saying, what others are thinking. So really, really love that. So, you went back to Nigeria after studying in the UK. Um, the perception is that is not a good move because there are more opportunities in the UK than in Nigeria. I say the perception. That might not be the reality, but that's the perception. So tell us a little bit about why you chose to go back to Nigeria and chose to remain, and what it's been like doing business in Nigeria.
okay, why did I go back to Nigeria? One, as an engineer, a problem solver, a value creator, I think a developing nation is a better environment for any engineer. I mean, what could I possibly have been doing in the United Kingdom that everybody else wasn't doing?
Mm,
I was bringing my knowledge, my skills, my expertise back home to Nigeria. And I was privileged to have had a late father who was pretty senior in engineering, even though I chose a completely different path from him because I wanted to be my own person. Nigeria is an oil and gas province, more of a gas province than an oil province. The Niger Delta has more prolific assets globally. Sweet crude is known all over the world. So, I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better problem to solve than come and solve the problems in the Niger Delta. Challenges, obviously, Nigeria it's a very patriarchal society. When I set up my business 33 years ago, everybody thought I was either somebody's secretary or their girlfriend. So I had to kind of convince them that I had value to add. And that took a lot of work. So I worked as an in-house consultant for 10 years and 10 months to build my track record and build my capacity as a company before I launched out as an independent consulting company. And I think one of the major challenges is basically changing the status quo. But I've navigated that by being parts of groups, advocacy groups, and groups that had a common goal and objective. So I'm on the board of the Petroleum Technology Association of Nigeria. I'm on the board of the Petroleum Club. I'm a very active member of the Oil and Gas Trainers Association of Nigeria, Women in Business. I'm on the Council of We Connect Nigeria, Commonwealth Business Women's Network. I'm a member of that. I'm a co-founder of the Women in Energy Network. So I've formed alliances and strategic collaborative advocacy initiatives, as well as become active members in associations, institutions, societies, and networks that further my cause. Because I mean, there was no way I was going to fight all these stumbling blocks on my own. I strongly believe in group think and group work when it comes to confronting the status quo and pulling down walls where there are barriers put. Another area where I've had to do a lot is addressing corruption. I mean, we all know that people think, well, corruption is a major issue in developing nations, but it takes two to tango. I've come to figure out that. So if anybody tells you there's corruption somewhere, it takes two to tango. So I've had to take a step back and decide what value do I bring to the table and how can I convince the corrupt person on the other side of the table that this is not a bribery and corruption opportunity for you. I'm going to help you achieve your goals, your KPIs. I'm going to help you empower people in your community. I'm bringing a lot to the table. So you will need to give me the job without me paying you a bribe. And in some very rare cases where I have not been able to convince them, I've probably worked as a subcontractor to somebody who's agreed to pay the bribe. But I've always taken every requirement and request for a bribe as an opportunity to educate the bribe collector, potential bribe collector, about the flaws in his thinking or her thinking, more his thinking, and to see that in the short, medium, and long term, nobody's going to benefit apart from you going on some tangent for a short while, but you'll be back to the table of asking for more. That why don't we broaden our thinking and look at this as an opportunity to improve our society and our community and our country, as opposed to us exchanging money for a temporary or a transient benefit that you think you want. So that has been. So I'm right now in a lot of advocacy groups where we're very anti-bribery and corruption, and we promote value creation and value addition as opposed to bribery and corruption. So that's a journey I'm pretty busy on at the moment.
Pretty busy, I'm sure. Very, very busy. I can't even imagine because I'm Nigerian, obviously, so I know the culture. I know how difficult it would be to take the stand that you are taking, that you're not going to offer a bribe to get a contract, and it can't be easy. I'm going to get you to speak a little bit more on that in a moment, but just listening to you and all the things you do and all the associations and the institutions you're a part of, how do you find the time? Where does work-life balance come in for Ibilola Amao? How does that happen?
Okay, so like I told you, I'm a team player. I delegate what somebody else can do, and I empower my team to take charge of so many activities. I only show up where I need to be, and I have a calendar on my phone where my time is very well programmed. I did the Stephen Covey training maybe about 20 years ago, at least 20 years ago. So I'm very much into time management. So on my phone, I have a calendar of activities, and I'm able to prioritize my activities. And I mean, and I'm very clear on what I need to show up for and what I need to put my energy on. And another thing is, because whatever I'm passionate about, I create time for. So it's no longer about ticking a box and being somewhere or doing something. No, I show up and I give my all to whatever I'm passionate about, and I prioritize my time to ensure that my spiritual life doesn't suffer, my family life doesn't suffer. Right. So it's all time management and prioritizing what matters to you based on your goals and your objectives. I have a clear purpose. I know what I want to achieve in my lifetime. So if what I'm being asked to do doesn't key into that purpose, then it's a no. And I have no apologies for a no.
If you're enjoying this conversation, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. That will help us bring more inspiring conversations to you and reach more people. And if you know of a leader that should be featured on the Life and Leadership podcast, please reach out to us with their details. We would love to hear from you. Absolutely. I love that. I always say, sometimes people leave, they put the cart before the horse, as it were. You're setting goals without having a clear purpose and a clear vision, but it should be the other way around. You should know exactly where you want to go, and then that determines what you then fill your days with. And that way, you're not just having loads of activity, but you're having the right activities that will get you where you want to go. So that's really, really important. So basically, good time management, being clear on your purpose, prioritizing. I always say it's not about getting or trying to get everything done, it's getting the right things done, because we will never get everything done. So being clear on what you should be spending your time on, but also leveraging your network and empowering your team. You mentioned that, empowering your team. As a leader, that is the biggest favor we can do to ourselves, to empower our teams, because then that frees us to do the things that we alone can do. So that's really, really good. So if you were to tell us your top three in quote mantras, so these are things that suppose guide you in life, what would those three be?
Yeah, I'll say all things work together for good to them that love God and are called according to his purpose. I mean, I've always gone out there and done things for the love of God and love of humanity, not really caring whether I'm acknowledged or praised or celebrated for. I just do what is in line with my purpose. And I just know that when you sow a seed, you would, reap a bountiful harvest. And if you do good, you will get good in return. So that's definitely. And then I also believe in teamwork. I think if you want to achieve great things in life, you need to work with the right team. And you need to be very careful about those you surround yourselves with. And then I also believe that words are spirit and life. So I'm very careful about what I say. And I try never to be negative about anything. And I would try my best and give my best in anything I set my heart to do. And most times, by the special grace of God, I've been very successful at whatever I put my heart to.
Wonderful. I love that. And I love the first one. All things work together for good. I think that is such a, whether you're a person of faith or not, and I know you are a person of faith, but whether you're a person of faith or not, having that attitude of all things will work out is such a positive attitude to have. And it really helps you to always look for the positive, always look for the way. There's always a way. So that's really, really good. What would you say is your superpower?
Superpower? My superpower is God Almighty.
Explain that to some people who might not understand what that means.
Yeah, so for me, the ultimate power is divine, God who is Almighty. And I just come to Him in all humility every day and say, Lord, use me whichever way you choose. Because you created me, you know my potential, you know my passion, you know my talent. Help me use what I have most efficiently and effectively to fulfill my purpose and destiny, so that at the end of it all, you'll say, welcome, my good and faithful servant.
And you feel like that is what really gives you the strength and the energy and the wisdom and everything you need to do all that you've been able to do and to keep breaking those barriers.
Absolutely. And I must tell you, I strive to invest quality time with God every morning. I have a quiet time and plan my day with God. And I feel like I am responsible to God Almighty. So I've never been one who wants to maybe please their boss or be in the good books of anybody. No, I know exactly who I am accountable to.
That's powerful. I think if you're accountable to the Almighty, there's no other
Exactly.
accountability required.
Exactly.
So, two more questions then. What would you say has been your biggest life lesson? So, this is not necessarily with respect to leadership, just generally, what's been your biggest life lesson?
My biggest life lesson is you cannot determine how people respond to you. And for you to decide how human beings treat you or respond to you and either feel disappointed, pleased, or impressed, either way, is such a waste of time.
Wow.
You need to focus on what you can control, which is how you treat people and how you respond to people. Well, I've heard of people who go into depression or shock or stuff because people did this or that. But I'm always like, why don't you just focus? Let's focus on what we can control and who we are, as opposed to waiting for either people to affirm or to celebrate or praise. No. Let's try and focus on what we can control. So that's really helped me because I'm not disappointed by whatever
That's so
comes my way.
powerful. That is so powerful because the truth of the matter is, if somebody likes you today, then you're happy. And then you meet someone who dislikes you tomorrow, then you're unhappy. And so you're just up and down. You don't know who you are. You're not stable. And that is really great advice. Just know who you are and believe in what you're doing and just leave the things you cannot control. I'm a person of faith as well. And there's a scripture that says Jesus did not give himself to commit himself to man because he knew what was in man. And that I always remind myself of that. Men are so fickle. Today make him a king, tomorrow is crucify him. So we can't afford to allow people determine our worth, is what you're saying. If we know our
Absolutely.
worth, then it doesn't matter whether other people recognize it or not. You just know who you are, what you're worth, and continue to bring your value, and there will be room for you. I love that. Really love that. Final question. It's been such a joy having you on the Life and Leadership podcast, Ibilola. I'm going to ask you a final question. If you were speaking to a young leader or an aspiring leader, someone looking to step up to leadership, what advice would you give them?
I think self-discovery is the core of the leadership level you would achieve or attain in life. So the breadth, width, and depth of your self-discovery defines the strength of the foundation on which you build your character, your attitude, your approach to life, and so many other things, how you relate with people. And that really determines how far you go as a leader. So I always tell people, apart from finding Christ and making Jesus Christ the Lord and Savior of my life, and going through a personality profile analysis and listening in on words that have been spoken to me from the earlier days. And if you connect dots around who you really are and you have that core and understanding of your DNA and how God created you and wired you, and you understand how you function and how you exist, and it helps you understand how to flourish and how to grow and how to be a better leader and a better version of yourself on a daily basis. So I always tell people, don't compete with anybody. Compete with yourself. And every morning when you wake up, make sure your goal is to be a better version of yourself. So by the time you put your head on your pillow at night, you should be able to convince yourself and be true to yourself that you have improved by XYZ and you're a better version of the person who woke up that morning. For me, I think that's more important than stretching your neck to see what X, Y, and Z are doing around you and trying to be like the Joneses. No, let's focus on self-discovery, personal, professional, career, and development, general leadership development, and be on that journey and adventure with God to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I quite agree. I always say self-discovery and self-acceptance is the first key to self-confidence. You know, when you know yourself and you accept yourself, I'm not saying we don't grow, we keep growing, but you accept who you are, you accept where you are at the moment, and maybe you find the gaps and you try and fill the gaps by developing yourself. But when you accept yourself, then you're not comparing and competing with others. And I really think those two things are things that hold people back from flourishing, from really bringing their real authentic self, as we love to say in the diversity and inclusion space, bring their real authentic selves to the table because they're thinking, what I have is not good enough. And the way they're determining good enough is they're comparing what they have with what the next person has. And so when you understand this is who I am and I'm bringing who I am, irrespective of what anybody else is bringing, it creates room for you, for anyone looking to step into leadership. Because the truth of the matter is, you don't know leadership until you do leadership. Right? You don't know leadership until you do leadership. You can read all the books, you can watch all the training videos, etc. But until you actually start to lead, you don't know leadership. So don't be afraid of it. If you're given the opportunity, step up. Somebody's seen something in you. That's why they're giving you that opportunity. But then remember, it's just an opportunity. The fact that you have a position or a title does not make you a leader necessarily. It just gives you the opportunity to develop yourself as a leader. And so start to discover yourself, start to develop yourself. That's how you grow and create room to really be better. Love that. Really love our conversation today, Ibilola. Really love what you've brought to the table. And I know it's going to add tremendous value to the lives of our listeners. So I really, really want to say thank you for coming on the Life and Leadership podcast.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for being patient with me. And finally, I'm so glad we've had this conversation.
Me
I've
too.
learned a lot as well, and it's been really, really interesting digging deep into my thoughts to give you the answers I came up with.
Thank you. You came up with some brilliant answers. So thank you very much.
The Life and Leadership Podcast is brought to you by Can Do Academy, where we help organizations develop high-performing teams and extraordinary leaders. To find out more about our work, visit candoacademy.net. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Life and Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, hit the subscribe button. That will help us reach more people and inspire more leaders. See you on the next episode.